Oh, thank goodness. The Game Boy Advance is finally out. We're able to play many of our games that we were able to as kids now on portable devices. What advanced series are we gonna get now? It's gonna be Pokemon, isn't it? It's gonna be fucking Pokemon. When the Game Boy Advance came out in 2001, Nintendo had a big question to answer. How do you convince people to buy a brand new handheld without many Mario titles on the forefront? We had one, which was Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, but Nintendo wanted to take a different approach with the console. Rather than just giving new games out into the limelight, they decided to go another route, which was re-releasing some of their older games onto the console to try and see if it could appeal to newer players. And so that's what they did, and today I want to talk about whether it actually made sense for Nintendo to release the Advance series when they did, and if it worked out or not. The first game in the Advance series was just Super Mario Advance, and it launched alongside the GBA in 2001. The first title was based on Super Mario Bros. 2, which was one of the odd ones out of the bunch on the NES, so for this one to land on the GBA was, simply put, expected to happen. The graphics were updated, the sound quality was a little bit better, and for the first time in a handheld Mario game, the characters in it actually talked, both the characters and the bosses.
Well, hello there!
The goal here was pretty obvious to Nintendo's standpoint. They wanted something familiar that showed off what the GBA could do right away, was a Mario title, and it achieved both goals that Nintendo wanted to do while focusing on bigger projects. Like Pokemon. Always gotta be Pokemon. Super Mario Advance had sold nearly 5.57 million copies worldwide at the end of 2021, making it one of the most profitable GBA games of all time besides the Pokemon series. In my personal opinion, however, I do believe this is the weakest out of all of the Advance series games, just because of how the game controls. It's not as great as the original Mario 2, and I do believe the pickup in quality was not as great as the other three in the series have been able to show us. Speaking of which... Later that same year, Nintendo followed up with a major decision. After the success of Super Mario Advance, they had decided, well, what's next? What could we do now to appease to Mario players that we aren't going to be making titles for the GBA, but could include new remakes or new projects to appease to the players? They followed up with Super Mario Advance 2, which was Super Mario World. And, for the time being, this was pretty big. Mario World was one of the most beloved platforms Nintendo has ever made for the Super Nintendo. For a lot of people, this was the Mario game they grew up with. So, for the fact that Nintendo managed to bring this entire game over to a handheld device and was able to keep everything intact was pretty performative. You had all the original levels, all the secret exits, Star Road, Special World, everything. Including Yoshi. Nothing was cut. And just like the first game, Nintendo also included Mario Bros. Arcade game. And in every single case for every single game in the Advance series, they came pre-included with the Mario Bros. Arcade game, which was also multiplayer. Pretty cool. And this is where I'll throw my opinion in again. Super Mario Advance 2, probably the best out of the series. It doesn't feel anything compromised, doesn't feel rushed, it's just Mario World. The level design is still really great, the controls feel way more responsive than in Mario 2, it doesn't feel like Mario's constantly running on butter, and nothing about the game feels like it had to be scaled back, and everything just works perfectly. You're getting one of the best 2D platformers, which is Mario World, and you're getting it on a handheld device, where you can take it just anywhere on the go. And that was literally perfect. It's just one of the best things that Nintendo did. It wasn't just a good remake, it was a great way to get Mario World into new players' hands and to make it portable. One last thing too before we get to this part of the video. Yoshi's Island was the first ever video game that I have ever played and beaten when I was a kid. So if this portion of the video makes it feel like I'm blazing the game a lot, and it's probably going to be, rest assured I'm going to give a lot of bonuses to this game. I'll still have some criticisms, I still have some criticisms with the game, but my goodness guys, my goodness. So, with Super Mario Bros. 2 and Super Mario World finally out of the way, they had a choice to make. They had Super Mario Bros. 3 in line, and they also had Super Mario Bros. 1, which was also recently released as Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the original Game Boy. What choice did they make, however? Well, they decided to release Super Mario Advance 3, Yoshi's Island. Up until this point, the Mario Advance games were very clearly classic Mario but portable. This release shifted the focus away from Mario and put Yoshi front and center because Yoshi was starring in the latest Mario game, which was Mario Advance 2. Originally released on the Super Nintendo as Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, this game was already known for being one of Nintendo's most creative platformers. The hand-drawn storybook art style stood out immediately, and the gameplay leaned more into exploration and precision rather than the consistent speed that Mario was well known for. Bringing this to the Game Boy Advance was actually a pretty decent move. Yoshi's Island wasn't a simple platformer. It relied on the visuals, the physics-based egg throwing, and very specific level design, which was more catered to the more chillax and well-going performance that Yoshi's Island had. So the fact that Nintendo managed to translate all of this into a handheld was impressive. The advanced version included the original game, along with 6 brand new bonus levels that weren't in the Super Nintendo release. The extra content was important because it gave longtime fans a real reason to check out this version instead of just sticking with the SNES version. This release showed that the Game Boy Advance wasn't just a system for porting straight Mario games. It can handle more experimental titles like Yoshi's Island, and it can include more content and the longevity. Now, for my personal opinion. Yoshi's Island is one of my favorite video games of all time, and for it being my first video game that I've ever played and beaten, I have to give it major props. It was a very much relaxed game in which I loved playing all the time when I was on my Super Nintendo, and having it be a main primary source of my fun when I was a kid really brings it up into the spotlight more and more that I play it nowadays. I really love playing as Yoshi. His controls are amazing. The egg throwing is a lot of fun. Playing as Mario sometimes in the levels is a little finicky, especially in the GBA version. It's a little wonky, but overall it is really fun to play as Mario as well. The designs of the levels are very interesting. There's a lot of different scenarios in the game which allow you to control Yoshi to his fullest potential. I think the only things I can really say are negatives are mostly things about, like, Shy Guys, for example, the noises that they make. You know, most of the enemy noises that they make in the games now are very weirdly sounding and not sounding like the characters that we're used to. Another big complaint is just crunch size of the screen can sometimes lead into scenarios where you can get hit by enemies, especially in the final level. There's issues along with that, but mostly this game is still pretty much one of my favorites. It's a really good game. I highly recommend you guys go check out either the NES version or the GBA version. Definitely go check around if you got the time. So, the year was now 2003, and things were pretty large for the Advance series. Yoshi's Island did pretty well, Mario World captivated all that the SNES was able to do, and Advance was practically just Advance. There's not really much I can say about it. But, at this point, Nintendo knew what they were doing, and with their final Advance game now on the horizon, it was time to now introduce Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 3 was the most creative NES title that they have introduced. It introduced world maps, new power-ups, and level of creativity that just defined 2D Mario going forward into the series. So, with it, had a lot of new introductions. Nintendo included the Mario Bros. Arcade game again, and it included Super Mario Bros. 3. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, that Super Mario Advance 4 added was the e-reader support. In certain regions, pretty much every single region exempt for Europe, players could get these physical cards and purchase them from stores and add them to their GBA and scan them to unlock brand new levels for Super Mario Bros. 3. Which was insane. This was insane at the time. This was like early copies of DLC for games. And it was for the GBA of all things. Pretty nice. Won't lie, that's pretty interesting stuff. Controls felt okay. Level design was still really amazing for the e-reader stuff. And overall, Advance 4 ended up feeling like the best version of Mario Bros. 3. And it really cemented the idea overall that the Game Boy Advance could host full classic Mario experiences without any compromises at all. So, the question now arises, did Nintendo do well with the Advance series, and was the Advance series necessary on the Game Boy Advance? My answer would be yes, for the most part. I do believe that the Advance series was able to perform really well with the two most recent Mario games, those being Mario World and Yoshi's Island. I believe those two specifically on the GBA did really well and shown that SNES ports were capable of being able to be played on the GBA. I believe that Mario 3 was second on the list if you want to take it from most creative to least creative. Mario 3 was, well, third. In terms of, yes, you were able to get DLC levels for the levels that you were introduced, but overall, I do believe that Mario 3 was just Mario 3 in the end. Nothing was really introduced since it was already made for the Super Nintendo. And for Mario Advance, for Super Mario 2, I do believe that one was the weakest out of the bunch, just because it was just Mario 2 again, and we've already seen it remade a couple of times already, and I don't believe it had as much of an impact as the other three games. Personally, I do like the series in general. I do like the Mario Advance series. It's a really fun series to go and try out for yourselves. If you do want to go try it out, it is available on the Nintendo Switch Online service with an expansion pass, or if you really want to, you can emulate the games on your PC with copies that you'll have to find yourselves and play them that way. I do highly recommend you guys try out Super Mario World and Yoshi's Island first, as those are the two that really benefited the most, and then Mario 3 and Mario Advance with Mario 2 to leave them off at the very end. But yeah, that's my video on the Mario Advance series. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was really a lot of fun to be able to make a video like this, explaining the Mario Advance series, my personal opinions on them, and just to overall go over the strengths, weaknesses, and the many different things that the Advance series was able to show to the world, so to say. Anywho, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for all the support, and I will be talking to you guys later. See ya.